Hey y'all. Hi. I'm so happy to be filming again. It's been kind of a long time for me because we've been moving. So I'm here in the house that Joe and I have rented, our new space. This is not going to be the background forever. Clearly, we're just in the middle of setting up and I just had to start filming. I'm going to take my time with the background because I want it to be really good, but I didn't want to let there be too long of a lapse between videos, and I'm excited about today's video specifically. One of the last videos that I filmed before we left the house that we were living in LA, the house of our lovely friends Julia and Oliver, and if you want to know more about that, click through and watch the final video that I filmed with Julia. It should have gone up pretty recently. So one of the last videos that I filmed there was putting together a travel makeup bag, because between living without the stuff after we'd packed it up to move and then living without our stuff before it arrived after we had moved here, I was living out of a suitcase for, I said 3 weeks, but it's really ended up being more like a month, realistically, because even after the boxes arrived, we had to unpack the ball and find everything, and I still don't really know where everything is. So this has been my little personal makeup kit basically for a month, and when I put it together back in LA, I was kind of guessing at what I thought that I would want the most and what I would get the most use out of, and I was right about some things and wrong about others. So I'm going to go through everything that I packed and basically review my decision to include it and let you know what I used, what I didn't. And at the end, I'm going to let you know what I missed the most. So when I unpacked my makeup, what was I the most excited to start using again? What have I started using again right away? There are 5 specific products that I actively thought about multiple times over the course of the month and that I wished I had included in the bag. So I have them here and I'm going to show them to you. If this is your first time to my channel, let me tell you, it's gonna look way better. Thank you for bearing with me, especially if you're new. While it looks a mess, hopefully it won't be too long. This is a beauty channel, fundamentally. I really love makeup and skincare, and I like reviewing those things. I also like using the stuff I already have, continuing to revisit and review the stuff that I've owned for a long time and been using for a long time. If that sounds good to you, and if you enjoy this, please subscribe if you're not a subscriber yet. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of this, my very first video in my new studio. I know that the framing is really different because we're not just in a new space. Joe took the opportunity of the move to upgrade some of our equipment. We are trying some new things in terms of like lighting and also framing. So I think I'm probably smaller in the frame than I usually am, and there's more background in the frame than there usually is, which I'm really excited about because I'm going to interior decorate the S out of that background. I mean, not really. I'm going to try to keep it kind of simple and restful for the eyes. Stay tuned. And if you have any ideas, like what would you love to see in my background? If you have any ideas, definitely let me know in the comments section down below, because I have some thoughts right now, but I'm still taking suggestions. What I was trying to say is that it's not just the background that's new, but a lot of the technical aspects of what we're doing are things that we're trying newly or that are actually based on new upgraded equipment. Forgive me if there is some kind of like if the color, things like the color, the sound, those kinds of things, we're definitely going to be tinkering with them for probably several videos before we get everything perfectly calibrated. Okay, all of those disclaimers out of the way, let's go through the bag. Hey y'all, I just finished filming the video, and as soon as I was like, be the most effective version of yourself, kissy kissy, I remembered that there's something that I forgot to say in the introduction. So I'm going to say it now, and then I'm going to drop this clip in to the beginning of the video. I have been forgetting to remind you about the compassion class that I love so much. I love it so much that I'm actually thinking about taking it again. It's this class that I took about a year ago, run by a friend of mine. It is an at-home course, so you take it online, but it's a live class. And it's about the principles of compassion, starting with compassion for the self, and then working through compassion for the self to develop a greater capacity to love others. I really had my life changed by that class. I've talked about it a lot, so I'm going to link it down below. If it's of interest to you, click through and check it out and either consider joining this round or the next round. She teaches it 6 weeks at a time, every 2 months. Okay, back to past Hannah talking about makeup. I think that what I'll do is I'll start with the Salt New York palette because I made this little like my perfect palette. I really like these cream products from Salt New York, and they're very versatile. So the idea of committing to having with me a palette like this in my suitcase was that by having all of these lip and cheek products and complexion products and shade adjusters that I could adjust the shades of any of these products if I wanted to. The idea of having all of that was that I would be less tempted to include like a whole bunch of extra lip products and cheek products and even complexion products in the other bag, because most of what I would ever want to do on my face, on every part of my face except my eyes, I can do with this. Although one of you in the comments was saying that I should try the Sneaky Balm in Cocoa on my eyes. Not the Sneaky Balm, I'm sorry, the lip and cheek in Cocoa on my eyes. And I haven't done it yet. I feel like it would crease because it's so balmy, but it might be, sexy creasy. I just realized that I don't have a towel. I usually have like a washcloth or something to wipe my finger. I don't have anything down here. My actual vanity is like up in the bedroom. And so I'm doing a thing in this house where I'm going to have my personal getting ready space that's like my vanity. And I'll be able to test products there and sort of better simulate like a non-YouTuber life of beauty products up there, which I'm really looking forward to because I think I'll be able to report back more authentically about what I really want to have around me, what I really end up using, as opposed to past iterations of this where the vanity was like in the filming space. And so every time I was getting ready and testing makeup, I felt like I was also in my workspace or like in my filming space. I don't know, maybe I'll end up disliking it, but it's one of the things that's different. The point is that to film, I'm bringing down, I like collected everything together and brought it all down. And it's just this here on like a completely empty table in a completely empty studio. And I don't have anything on which to wipe this swatch on my finger. I'm just going to put it on my lips. All right, that took care of most of it, and I'm just wiping the rest like on the bare tabletop. And no more swatching for this video, okay? I'm just going to be talking about the things, but I can't swatch anything. What are we doing? I'm so tired, y'all. Moving is exhausting, both on like a surface physical level and on like an emotional, spiritual level, the most fundamental level. It is just wild, especially moving so far. I mean, we moved across this enormous country, and we're in a completely new climate, both culturally and, what would the word be? Meteorologically. Both culturally and meteorologically, we're in an entirely new climate. So it's disorienting, but good. I mean, for those of you who are wondering. So far, so good. So the question of this, how did it go between this and me when I was moving? I definitely used the products. I used the lip and cheeks for sure. I think that overall I wore less color cosmetics than I thought. When I was back in LA and we had already packed up our boxes, but I was still filming, I made more use of the color cosmetics. And I definitely especially wore Cocoa a lot. And I actually wore the terracotta, this like rusty red one, quite a bit. I think that I found myself maybe opening this less, like unzipping it and opening it less than I thought that I would, because there was like this other bag. So I would be like, I'm going to put on a little makeup, and then I would just start digging through this bag. And it wasn't like I would forget that this was here, but in that weird, nonsensical, like brain illogic way, I would feel like unzipping and opening the palette was like a lot. I think that was what was going on, totally subconsciously. I'd be looking through it, and part of me would be like, oh, I'm not going to bother with the Salt New York creams right now because I would have to unzip the palette and open it. It doesn't make sense at all. I'm just telling you that in practice, a thing happened where I didn't use it as much as I thought that I was going to during this particular time, this particular 4-week time. The thing that did drive me to open it was times when I had a specific need for the product. So if I wanted a red lip, or I wanted that brown lip and brown cheek, and this actually happened a number of times and might have been the number one reason for me to reach for this, if I wanted to brighten or lighten up my base, because my skin has been really quite red and sort of had that like darkened quality during this transition because it's been quite dry and just hasn't felt very exfoliated, hasn't felt very fresh, and I haven't felt like I've had all of my skincare at my disposal as usual. And so I just haven't been taking as good care of my skin. In the past couple days since we've started to get settled here, it started to kind of come back. But there were a lot of days when all I wanted was to even out my complexion, and I just felt like nothing that I had could make the skin on my face light enough to make it kind of look normal with my neck and look seamless. I just felt like no matter what I did, my face looked like a tomato. So I was opening this a lot to get to the white shade adjusters, sometimes just to add them in even if I wasn't wearing the Sneaky Balm. But frequently once I opened it and I started using those white shade adjusters, I would start mixing the Sneaky Balm in with whatever else was already on my face, always loving how incredibly seamless and melty it was on the skin. And then I would often end up dipping into the other pans. So I don't know what that weird sort of psychological barrier is to opening a palette like this when it is really just the work of a moment. I can't explain myself. I'm only mentioning it because I think some of you have watched this process, like watched me pack my travel bag and are going to be watching this review because you're about to move or because you travel frequently and you're kind of asking yourself, well, what makes a good travel bag? Like you're actually looking for information, like it's a kind of research. And I have to say that I think that the part of my plan that was like, if I have this with me, I won't want to pack extra things. If I had it to do over, I might not do it exactly that way because I think that if I had had the equivalent of what's in here in just a couple of tubes and bullets and stuff, I might actually have used those products more because they would all have been in the bag together. If you have a keen eye, you might have spotted that I pulled this little mirror out of the bag. When I was getting ready, taking this for a test drive in LA, I thought that I had accidentally packed this mirror, but it turned out that I hadn't. I found it like the next day. So I actually packed it into this little travel bag and took it with me, and that was fantastic. It's indispensable, this little thing. I got this at a Korean spa in downtown Los Angeles, but it's a dupe for an Anna Sui mirror. The Anna Sui mirror, I think they sell it on Beautylish and it's like $25. It's pretty much exactly the same. And if I can find a dupe somewhere online for sale, I'll link that, but I'll definitely link the Anna Sui one from Beautylish. It's really nice to have a really tiny mirror like this. I find it incredibly useful. All right, we're just going to be reaching in as if into a Christmas stocking and reviewing things as they come out. The 3 complexion brushes that I packed, 2 were pretty much brand new to me from BK Beauty, and they are fantastic. Everything that I thought about them based on my very small experience that convinced me to put them in this bag and leave behind my other complexion brushes, everything is true. They're really soft, but really manipulable. I can easily get them to do what I want. I was using this kind of fluffy angled one for all over the face. I was using this littler, well, it's not even little. It's actually pretty big, but it's, it's got that kind of targeted soft density, and the very tip of the bristles is very, very soft. I like a brush like this for cream blush. When I want to apply it just to a targeted area, I can just with the tip, but it's fluffy enough that I can spread blush all over my face, all over the place, which is, as we all know, what I like to do. So this is the 107. This is the 101. They were PR. They sent me the entire set, and I didn't really know. I got an email and I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to try the BK Beauty brushes, but I didn't really know very much about them. So I was really, really impressed when they arrived and I started testing them. And then in the comments, a bunch of you guys were like, those are the best brushes for people who don't want to use animal hair. So they're like, apparently, according to a lot of people, just the standard top-notch brushes, like vegan brushes. And at this stage, I would say I love Refer brushes. Those are my favorite brushes, and that's like my top brush recommendation. And the eye brushes that I packed with me are all Refer. But my top recommendation for vegan brushes at this stage is definitely BK. They've impressed me a lot. And since I got here, since I was reunited with my makeup and I started unpacking it, I've gotten into the eyeshadow brushes that BK sent me, and they're also pretty great. So yes and yes, I use them a lot. This is just a standard, like my usual brush for putting a little bit of like a peachy powder onto my neck to make it match my face better. It's an old Tom Ford brush. I actually don't think that this was a gift to me from a friend, not PR. It's wonderful to have, but they make it now vegan. So I can't testify to the one that is currently on the market that looks just like this, the Tom Ford 05. But there's also a Refer dupe of this that is in goat hair. That's a really, really good brush. And I'll try to remember to link that down below as well. Because if I lost this, I would probably buy the Refer one. I have it too, and I use them interchangeably. Okay, let's keep going with brushes because they're right here. I actually think that I might have packed 4 eye brushes and I only brought 3. But they're just a fluffy blending brush from Refer, a big thick pencil brush from Refer, one of those little tiny blending brushes that is really good for hooded eyes. They're a fantastic little kit. I think there was one other maybe mid-sized fluffy brush, or was there? Maybe a smaller pencil brush. I can't remember. But I used them all whenever I did eyeshadow, even though I had only a little bit of eyeshadow with me. I think 3 or 4 little brushes like this. That was the perfect choice for me. These green color correctors, I'm actually not going to talk about right now because I'm testing them for a dedicated video comparing them to each other. It was exciting to have them with me. I have a lot to say about them now, but I'm going to save that for probably one of the next videos that I film. This was kind of a surprise. The ColourPop Pretty Fresh pressed face powder, it felt indispensable to me because again, my skin wasn't in that good of shape. So I was just constantly feeling like sort of dewy, too dewy, and maybe what you would even call greasy. I was constantly feeling like I just needed to kind of like veil my skin with something a bit pale and soft and velvety instead of having like a bunch of shiny creams that weren't quite the right shade all over the place. So I was reaching for this a lot. And by the end, I was actually applying it like with the complexion brush. I would sort of stamp it in and like stamp it on all around. I don't know if my skin has just gotten a little more oily or if it is, as I've been claiming that it is, just because so many products are so dewy right now. But I've found myself using powder more than ever lately. And this was the only one that I brought with me, so I used it a lot. Let's keep going with complexion. So the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer was such a good choice for me. I am just so impressed by this product. And I know it's supposed to be a dupe for the one from Tatcha, which is very elegantly formulated. I've used a little sample size of it before. And as far as I can remember, because I think that was years ago, this is just as good. It's lovely because it feels like skincare going on. I almost feel like I'm even helping my skin a little bit with moisture when I put it on. It kills that super shiny shine that I sometimes have on my face in the mornings, but without making my skin too matte, like matte in a weird way. And then it doesn't feel dry and it holds onto product beautifully and it's pore filling. It's just really, really good. And I think that when it's mixed in with all of my other really exciting illuminating primers, I kind of give it short shrift. Like I forget how great it is. And on this journey, when I just had this bag for a month, this was one of the things I was the most glad that I had packed. Complexion, though, I misjudged a little bit. So having the green color correctors was great because my skin was feeling so red a lot of the time. But the only 2 complexion products that I packed were the Monica Blender Cover and the Salt New York Sneaky Balm. If you've been following, then you know that neither one of them is exactly quite the right shade for me. So the Sneaky Balm has the right undertones for me, but it's a little bit too dark. And then the Blender Cover is the right shade for me. It's very light and bright, but it's a little bit too pink. And I love both of these products, and I reviewed them enthusiastically in my video about balm foundations, and I still feel like they're 2 of the best complexion products I've ever tried, and I am really glad to have them. But after a week or 2 of just having the 2 of them and not having any of my concealers that I usually kind of mix in with them, I started to miss my concealers. And I started to miss, this is a spoiler alert for the end of the video. You guys probably knew this was going to happen. In the comments, some of you were scandalized that I didn't pack it. I started to really miss the Rose Ink concealer because it's just so neutral and it really helps me to ground the color of my complexion when I'm trying to even out my skin tone. And it was hard, but I felt like with these 2 products, neither one of which is quite the perfect match, I felt like I was always sort of bouncing between them and tinkering with them, with green color corrector, with the white shade adjusters. And it's funny, I think I've been so enamored of these balms, and I've been doing that for like a couple of months, that kind of tinkering that I'm describing. And it didn't bother me as much when I was at home, sitting in front of my vanity with all of my things around me and just feeling the beauty of the products and how special they were. But on the road, it became less than ideal. And I started being like, I wish I just had that rose ink concealer that I could just pop on my face and put all over and it would do the job. It's nothing against the products themselves. And of course, I stand behind everything I said before in the reviews, and I will keep using them. I just should have included the rose ink concealer in my bag as like a balancer. I think it would have made a difference. I was so happy to be reunited with it when I unpacked my makeup. I guess this is kind of a complexion product, the Kevyn Aucoin Neo Highlighter. I used it a lot. I kind of almost didn't pack it. I was like, well, it's sort of a delicate powder product. Maybe I'll be fine without it. And then I was so glad that I packed it because, again, my skin was like sort of peachy and a little bit irritated a lot of the time over this past month. And I didn't really have the tools that I needed to rebalance the shade. So I was compensating for that by darkening my neck quite a lot. And this powder is what I use for that. So that was a good call. I think that's pretty much it for complexion. The little perfume sample that I brought with me, I've continued to love. I'm actually wearing it today. It's One Umbrella for Two by Floricu, and it just, came in the mail along with something I had ordered one time. It has those berry overtones that I don't really like, but they fade pretty quickly and it turns into this kind of warm, musky, sweet, very addictive and super easy to wear scent. You know what I mean? It's not challenging. It's just like surrounding you in fluffy bubbles. It feels like the scent version of a Lush bubble bar or bath bomb or something, like all gooey center, no hard edges. And I usually like my perfumes to have some hard edges. But for this time of transition, it was nice to feel kind of coddled by scent. Okay, let's talk about eyes. Actually, let's start with eyebrows. I did manage to replace my busted Refi brow gel before we left LA, and I use this every day. Sometimes it's the only thing I use. Maybe a little bit of complexion and then a little bit of brow pomade. It still holds my brows in place better than anything I've ever tried, but I've seen my friend Becca talking lately about, I think it's the Patrick Ta one, and I kind of want to try it in the tube. Has anyone tried that? I also packed this Glossier Brow Flick. I didn't use it that much because I did dye my brows before we left LA, but once the dye started to fade, I started filling in a tiny bit with this, so I was glad to have it. That's it for brows. And here is all of the eye makeup that I packed. So the only eyeshadow that I took was Tom Ford Cream and Powder in Naked Bronze. I knocked it out of the park with this one. It takes up so little space. I didn't miss any other eyeshadow at all. I didn't regret putting any of my other eyeshadows into the boxes. And once I had unpacked my eyeshadow, the first time I sat down to do my makeup, I started reaching for this. I still wanted to use it even after I had everything else at my disposal. I just feel like nothing beats the sort of grungy, smudgy, golden bronze eye with those wet looking micro glitters that I can get from this. It's my absolute go-to classic, and it is just what I want to do most days. In fact, today I made myself go to my palette collection and I pulled out the Pat McGrath Midnight Sun palette, which I absolutely love. And I ended up creating a look really similar to the ones that I was creating when I was on the road with this one. But the honest truth is that I didn't use it very much after I stopped filming in LA and we left. The last couple times I filmed, I used this to create an eye look, and then I didn't wear eye makeup very much while we were in transition. This is actually the first time that I've been snatched. I mean, this is my version of being snatched. And I've got to say, it's really nice to have kind of sat myself down and really gotten myself together for the first time in a long time. There have been a lot of just mascara days. There have been a lot of absolutely no makeup days. But when I did need eye makeup for any reason, it was enough for me. It was fantastic, especially because I had packed both of the eyeliners. I thought that I didn't have a sharpener, like a pencil sharpener, and I was going to pack the Victoria Beckham eye kajal into the moving boxes because I needed to sharpen it. But then I found a sharpener that I had left out and I ended up bringing it with me. I was really glad that I brought both of these products with me because whenever I did eye makeup, I used them a lot. So that's the Victoria Beckham on top and the Surratt Smoky Eye Baton on bottom, which actually was amazing to have because the times that I did use the Tom Ford cream and powder, it's like the one thing that it doesn't have is a darker color to really smoke out, the outer corner. And the Smoky Eye Baton has it, not just in eyeliner form, but also this like dip thing. It's like this smudger stick that dips in, and it's so effective and easy to use. And I got some really dramatic eye looks just with that and the Tom Ford. I feel like in a way, when it came to eyeshadow, that's where I was the most successful because I was the most economical and the products packed the most punch for how much space they took up and for how like few of them there were. Oh, and I forgot that I actually should include this in the commentary that I was just giving about how I knocked it out of the park with eyeshadow because I took this Lethal Cosmetics liquid eyeshadow with me. It's so beautiful and sparkly. I'm not going to swatch it, but if you didn't watch the original video where I was putting this little bag together, you should go and watch it, if only to see the amazing swatch of this product. I definitely used it like in the centers of my lids whenever I was trying to do the most with eyeshadow. But still, even with just the 4 of these, it's just 4 little things, especially these so tiny, don't take up much space. I would gladly travel again for a month with just these, and I would feel totally confident. And if I were to like go to a tango festival again, like I used to in the old days, I was used to take like a whole palette, custom palette with all these different eyeshadows. I would happily take just these. I feel like I can do so much and many different like variations on the theme with just these. Very fond of those. Mascara. I packed this Isom mascara, which is a new launch, and I had absolutely no regrets. The thing that I have to recommend it is that I didn't even think about it. It didn't give me any trouble. I was never like, oh, I'm let down. I never felt like I was wishing for a mascara that I didn't pack. It never made me struggle to build it. It never smudged. It never made my lashes stick together. It did everything that I want a mascara to do, and it did it sort of effortlessly and without making a big deal out of itself. So this impressed me, and this is another one that I've continued to use even after I unpacked my other makeup. That is it for eyes. And the last category here is lips. And I was kind of a lip minimalist here because of the Salt New York palette. And again, I did end up using especially Cocoa from the Salt New York palette, but also Terracotta. And the other 2 I didn't use really on my lips. I used them on my cheeks, Rose and Coral, the other 2 from the Salt New York. But the lip plumping gloss from City Beauty, I was so glad that I had packed. I used this so much, more than I thought that I would. It's just very powerful, and it also feels moisturizing. It doesn't just feel like it's doing something weird to your lips. So my lips were feeling kind of like crusty and pruny a lot of the time, and I would just, whenever I sat down to kind of like get myself together, I would put this on, and by the time I was done getting myself together, my lips would just feel more smoothed and plumped and just healthier. And then usually what I would do is go in on top of that with just one of the lip balms that I had. So I wasn't even applying like a color cosmetic on top of that. I was just using this to get my lips like re-inflated, and then I was using a balm. And the 2 balms, the Ilia one and the Glossier, the Mango Glossier Balm.com, I don't have them with me because I used them so much that they ended up in like coat pockets and bags and stuff, and I couldn't find them when I was getting the stuff together to film this. But those were definitely my most used lip products, especially the Ilia one. It's so good. But I like the Mango Balm.com too. I used them both a lot, and I was really glad that I had them both with me. However, Gucci, A Royal Scandal, my all-time favorite lipstick, I didn't use it at all. I didn't wear it one time. I just felt like it wasn't really called for. I just felt like it wasn't fancy times. And it might partly, it's not even that fancy of a color. In fact, I'm not wearing it today, but it's very similar to this. What I'm wearing on my lips today is a concoction of the new Isom lip pencils, which are so good. I'll use them in a get ready with me sometime soon. I don't have them down here, but they're so good. So I think it actually is one of the new colors that they launched, the lighter side, to line my lips and all over. And then I used one of the products that I missed, actually 2 of the products that I missed. I'll tell you about them when I get there. But the overall effect is very similar to the effect that I get with a Royal Scandal, although maybe a little bit warmer. This is definitely like a super cool toned brown. So it's not as though it's fancy, but I think it was because I was kind of struggling with my complexion. I was doing a lot of moving stuff around, like a lot of physical labor, feeling exhausted. And so I just felt like there weren't very many days where I had gotten myself together enough to feel like a lipstick would work with what I was already sporting instead of just looking a little bit weird on top of what I was already sporting. So I just didn't end up wearing it. But here's the interesting thing. Is this the only thing I didn't wear? Okay, I'm actually kind of proud of myself about that. This is the only thing that I packed in my travel bag that I didn't wear, although not true, because I also didn't use the Salt New York highlighter. I think that that's it. So it's just the highlighter in here and this lipstick that I didn't use. That might be the best I've ever done with packing a travel bag that I would actually use, like where I'd actually use every single thing and kind of be glad that I brought every single thing that I packed. And I'm not sorry that I had this with me, because even though I didn't use it, I liked having it with me. I liked having my favorite Gucci lipstick in my bag. It was sort of like a security blanket thing, you know. I didn't wear it, but I could have. And it's okay with me that I had it with me all that time and carried it with me on the plane and had it with me all this time, even though I didn't use it. Sometimes our things are talismans. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to choose to have a thing with you, even if you're not going to use it. Sometimes that is the right choice. And I actually do feel like it was the right choice in this case, because I didn't wear it, but I definitely could have wanted it. And I could have seen myself wishing that I had packed it. And in fact, two of the things that I wished for are kind of similar to it. And I think I'm ready to move into the last part of the video. So now I will tell you about the 5 things that I thought about multiple times that I wished I had had with me. So the 2 that are similar in some ways to Gucci or Royal Scandal are these 2 brown lip products from Merit. 1990, which almost made it in and then didn't. And the reason it's one of the new Merit lipsticks, the formula is so good, y'all. The formula is so good, so effortless. And this brown 1990 is so beautifully cool toned and yet wearable, which is exactly what I love about a Royal Scandal from Gucci. It's just that this has that quality. It's a little bit waxier, a little bit more one with the lips. A Royal Scandal is that beautiful satin Gucci formula, but it really looks and feels like lipstick. And the Merit lipsticks, they've got this quality. They could almost be a little bit of maybe a lip treatment. They just feel a little bit easier to wear, more natural. And I think that if I'd had it with me, I might have been more likely to wear it than a Royal Scandal. The reason I didn't take it was because Cocoa from the Salt New York palette is so similar to it. And I did end up wearing Cocoa a lot. I just think that if I had this, I would have worn it more, because this I didn't take with me when I was like leaving the house, for example. This isn't the kind of thing that I would like pull out on the bus to like fix up my lipstick, you know what I mean? Whereas this, I would have like thrown it in my purse, maybe taken it to dinner, etc. So I wish that I had this with me on multiple occasions, and I think that I would have worn it more than Cocoa and more than a Royal Scandal. And then the Merit Shade Slick Tinted Lip Oil in Taupe. It's like the more liquidy version of sort of the same thing. It is like a slidey, liquidy version of Salt New York Cocoa. So you can see what was going on, right? When I was narrowing it down, I had 4 brown lip products. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to take 4 brown lip products. So I'm just going to take 2. One of them is going to be my favorite lipstick of all time, which is the Gucci one. And the other is going to be the brown in the Salt New York palette, because I'm committed to taking it. That made logical sense at the time, but I honestly wish I had brought all 4 of them, because again, there were so many days when I was doing my makeup and I got towards the end and I was like, where is the Merit Shade Slick in Taupe? And then I was like, oh no, I didn't bring it. Like that happened to me so many times. This has become kind of an indispensable product to me, because I also feel like it helps melt together and finish and soften any kind of lip situation that I have going on. So today, when I was putting on this lip, I started with the Merit lipstick in 1990, which is kind of dark. I put it all over my lips. Then I went in with the Isom lip pencil. Again, I'll link it. So beautiful. And I lined my lips with that and then kind of filled them in. And then I finished with the Taupe lip oil, kind of like blending it all together and like softening the edges and blotting it a little bit. And I do that a lot with this product, more than I had realized. Because if I had realized how much I was depending on it, I would have packed it. We already talked about the Rose Ink Concealer, my baby. I love it. Highly pigmented, easy to manipulate, but the best thing about it is that it's a good match for me, because it's like this grayish olive that's very, very pale, and that's what I am. But funnily enough, I also missed, and you this really surprised me. I would never have predicted this. I also missed the Kosas foundation, which is a new launch. They sent it to me in PR. Oh, Sadie's here. I know, it's all new. I know she doesn't look happy right now, but Sadie is very happy in the new house. She's still getting used to it, you know. She is a cat with a strong sense of self-preservation, so she is always leery. She's worried about the ceiling fans in the house. She thinks they're chicken hawks. She's worried about the noises. But all things considered, she's doing amazing. And I'm glad that she's down here exploring. Maybe she'll become a fixture in the background. Maybe I should put a little cat spot for her back there. She has also caught 2 mice. Like, we couldn't have done better for Sadie than to move into a house with a couple mice because she loves to catch a mouse. Where were we? I don't usually wear foundation. And this, when I first started testing it, it's a little bit dark for me, right? So it was a no-brainer not to include it. I was like, of course I'm not going to use, I'm not going to carry with me a heavy bottle of, like, a whole bottle of foundation. That's a little bit too dark for me. But the lightest shade is kind of olive. Like, it's a really, really beautiful color. I had been using it right up until I packed my boxes, and I had been really impressed by the sort of velvety, really skin-like finish. There are some complexion products that they just make your skin look better no matter what. At least for me. I mean, I think sometimes it's individual, depends on your skin. But I think for each person, there are some complexion products that just always look good. It's like no matter how dry or flaky or oily or whatever, you can always count on this product to have sort of like a soothing effect. This is like that for me. And I hadn't really realized how much I was enjoying it and how much it was adding to like my confidence and enjoyment in my base routine until I packed it and the movers took it away. And then I started doing my makeup with just the other few things that I took. And I was like, I missed that Kosas foundation. I was shocked. And I'm not putting it all over my face like a foundation. I'm mixing it in just a little bit, just like a dot here and there with the balms, with my concealers, with the green color correctors to give my base mixture that really lovely emollient, sort of like satin, like not too dewy, not too matte, and comforting feeling finish. So I'm excited to be reunited with this. It was, again, one of the first things I dug out and one of the first things I started using again once we were here. And then lastly, I kind of missed my Givenchy powder because I ended up using the ColourPop one so much. But, you know, this is a powder with coverage, and the Givenchy Le Prism powder in Mousseline Pastel is just messy, which is why I didn't pack it. It's just this sort of like shade adjusting, semi-translucent finishing powder. What I really want is the pressed powder version of this that has been released, but I think that it's only on the Givenchy website or like at Harrods or something. I'm like waiting for it to come to Sephora and I just haven't seen it yet, or to come to Ulta or something, somewhere that I shop more regularly. But if it doesn't soon, I might just get it, because I say that I missed this, but what was really going on when I was traveling was I was like, you know what the ticket would be? Like, you know what I wish I had? That pressed version of Mousseline Pastel. I was like missing it even though I don't have it yet. That is it. I was mostly quite satisfied with what I brought with me. And, you know, it was fine. There were no disasters. It was more than enough. And the balance was great. And I was able to do all of the things that I needed to do. And I learned a little bit along the way. And I hope that you did too. I hope that those who've been following this, especially those of you who like have a move upcoming or a trip upcoming or something, you've been following this for that specific reason. I hope that this has helped you focus your own efforts and be realistic with yourself about what you're actually going to want, what you're actually going to use. Given that I was like, Hannah, you don't need 4 brown lip products, and then I wish I had brought all 4 of them, I might even venture to say that I was like a tiny bit too stringent. I'm glad that everything fit into my bag and it was definitely really easy. But funnily enough, even though the product that I didn't end up using, it was a lip product, I like wish I had allowed myself to bring a couple of more lip products. I think I wish I had erred a little bit more on the side of slight abundance, just because that sense of abundance can sometimes make you feel at home. You know what I mean? Or make you feel a little bit more put together, a little bit like, I think it would have made me feel like spending a little bit more time with my face and with my makeup than I actually did when I was traveling. Judging by how much putting myself together this morning elevated my mood. I think it probably would have been good if I had brought just a few more things that gave me a little bit more elbow room and encouraged me to spend a little bit more time on myself. But that's like really, really, really nitpicking, picking apart my decisions and how I felt when I was reunited with my makeup. All things considered, it was a great little kit, and I'm not mad at my past self. I think that she did well. But now the excitement starts because the vanity that I'm putting together here is like half done. I still might need a little article of furniture. This space is clearly just getting off the ground. I can't wait to furnish the parts of this house that need furnishing, reorganize my makeup, maybe even do a little decluttering. When I was unpacking my makeup, it was so weird. I decluttered it when I packed it. And then when I was unpacking it, I was like, why did I pack all this stuff? Why didn't I declutter these things? Like there are all these things that as they were coming out of the moving boxes, I was like, I don't need this. I'm going to get rid of this. Isn't that wild? So I might declutter again. What I'm trying to say is that I'm hoping to bring you along, and don't quote me on this. I might not end up doing it. I've learned my lesson in 4 years on YouTube not to make promises about content that I'm going to make. But right now, I feel excited about the prospect of bringing you along a little bit for some of the journey, at the very least, like organizing my new vanity and maybe furnishing that corner of the bedroom and maybe even furnishing the background here. And whether I manage to film a ton of content around that stuff or not, I'm excited about doing it, and I'm excited about revealing the finished product to you. A certain kind of hard work is over, the hard work of moving, and a new kind of hard work is beginning, this stuff, and that is something that I've been looking forward to for a really long time. Quick reminder again to subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself today so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.